Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to share with you guys my top teams for Hisui Cup because we're going to have it for another week and Ultra League is going to be coming along with it. I know a lot of people probably don't enjoy playing Ultra League, or maybe they don't have the XL Pokemon for it. So I am going to make some team recommendations for you guys for Hisui Cup. I really like Hisui Cup, it's one of my favorite cups. A lot of people dislike it, they think it's RPS. It is RPS, but I think there is a lot of potential for this cup, a lot of potential for you guys to reach Legend. Now before I get into the team recommendations, I just want to put some disclaimers out there. These are all teams that I have tried. I've played them several times in the Hisui Cup, I've climbed with them, but I have used them between 3,000 and 3,200 ELO. So maybe the meta is a little bit different in lower ELOs, but I expect these teams to work very well across the board. Anyways, Hisui Cup is super limited, so how different can the meta be in different ELO ranges? I'm not sure, but I think these are pretty solid teams. I have to put it out there that these are not all my original teams. Some of these are very, very common, like I've seen them run so many times. But I have been trying them out for a week now, and based on what I've learned in that week, I want to share it with you guys, which teams are the most consistent, which teams are the most solid, and hopefully it will help you climb. Now I could just give you guys the teams and be like, yeah, here you go, take it, try the team, you'll reach Legend easy. But it is very important for us to also remember that there are certain things that we need to do in order to improve our gameplay, and one of the most important things is fast move timing. I can't stress to you guys how important this is in the Hisui Cup, especially in a cup where you might get like really bad matchups. Sometimes just having the right amount of energy on the right Pokemon is going to give you a charge move that is going to allow you to then flip a bad matchup. So I went ahead and I created a chart for you guys. On the left are all the most common fast moves in the Hisui Cup. So the 1-turn moves are going to be Lick and Water Gun. The 2-turn moves, Counter, Powder, Snow, Psycho Cut, and the 3-turn moves, mostly you're going to run into 3-turn moves in this meta. And those are going to be Hex, Mud Slap, Waterfall, and Smackdown. And then you have the 4-turn moves, which are Confusion and Volt Switch. I don't think there are any Incinerates in this meta, which are going to be the 5-turn moves. So I left that out, but you can go ahead and look at this chart and have it for reference if you need it. There's a ton of charts out there online. But I'm not going to go too deep into this. I am planning on making a fast move timing video just dedicated to that later on in the future. But I have this for you guys just for reference. If you need it, pause the video and take a look at it. Alrighty, let's get into my top 5 team recommendations. Up first, it is going to be Lucario with double Ghost in the back, Lucario, Drifblim, and Frostlass. This team is pretty basic. You have the 2 anti-fighters in the back that are going to be covering for Lucario's weaknesses. Both Frostlass and Drifblim are also going to be good against Gastrodon, which Lucario is also weak to. Now Drifblim and Frostlass are both going to struggle a lot against the steel types, especially Bastiodon, which is going to be super effective to both of them. They're also going to struggle quite a bit against Empoleon and Magnezone, and Lucario is easily going to be able to take care of those. I like to use Drifblim as a safe swap. Usually it will draw out a Bastiodon or an Empoleon. If it draws out Empoleon, it's actually not the worst, as Shadow Ball is going to hurt Empoleon a lot, and you can throw neutral Shadow Balls against the Bastiodon if that is what you draw out. And if you draw out Frostlass with the Drifblim, then if you have an energy lead, you should be able to beat it going straight Mystical Fire. So make sure you're running the Mystical Fire and Shadow Ball on that Drifblim. It has a very good moveset for Drifblim. And on Frostlass, we are going to be running Crunch and Avalanche as the charged moves. Now I should give you guys a disclaimer, because of how common this double Ghost backline was, a lot of people started countering it with the next team that I am going to recommend to you guys. It is going to be Bastiodon and Empoleon in the back. So watch out for that. If you start seeing that a lot, you might have to switch teams and start using something else. And if you don't want to use Lucario as your lead, you can switch it out for Toxicroak or Gastrodon. Both of those are going to work in this ABB format. I should say that all of the teams I recommend today are ABB lines. So ABB is basically you have A, which is going to be your lead, and then 2 back Pokemon that are going to be performing the same task and being of the same typing usually. So you could have, for example, Ghost Double Steel or Ghost Double Fighter, something like that. That is an ABB line. Alrighty, now moving on to the next team. As I told you guys, I started running into a lot of Double Steel backlines to counter the double Ghost backlines that everyone was using. This team I was facing so much recently, and when I tried it also, I went positive with it. Again, really solid team. I don't know whose team this is originally, but it is going to be Cresselia on the lead with 2 Steel types in the back. The Steel types are going to be Bastiodon and Empoleon. I believe your safe swap is going to be Empoleon. The basic idea behind this is if you see a Ghost type lead, you swap into one of your Steel types, you draw out the Steel type counter, usually it is going to be Toxicroak or Lucario or Gastrodon, and then you have that out of the way for Bastiodon to sweep, potentially sweep in the back. Empoleon can also get shields out of the way because a lot of the times what Empoleon is going to draw out is not going to be able to take a Hydro Cannon or a Drill Peck, so you'll be able to at least get a shield out of your opponent. And then Cresselia is of course going to be able to take care of the fighters and the water types like Gastrodon with that Grass Knot. So it's a pretty solid team. I recommend you try it out if you started seeing a lot of Ghosts and Flyers in the back. And then of course I am going to recommend to you guys my absolute favorite team. I already posted a full-length video on this team. It is going to be Frostlass Double Fighter. If you start seeing the line that I showed you previously a lot, then this is going to work for you very well. The only issue with this team is it doesn't have a solid safe swap. So if you safe swap Lucario, sometimes you'll draw out a Toxicroak. That's not really what you want to draw out. They might still have a Ghost type in the back or a Gastrodon in the back. A lot of people are running Toxicroak Gastrodon backlines. And if you safe swap the Toxicroak, you might draw out a Confusion user or a Psychic type, which Lucario actually performs well against. So that's the only issue with it, is not having that solid safe swap to draw out what, you know, the 2 Pokemon in the back are going to be weak to, because Lucario and Toxicroak are going to have very different weaknesses. And if you start seeing a lot of Toxicroaks in the back, you can swap the Lucario out for Gastrodon. Gastrodon is going to be able to handle Frostlass's weaknesses just as well as Lucario. Now the next team I'm going to recommend to you guys actually surprised me. I really enjoyed playing with it. It is going to be Drifblim lead with Empoleon and Bibarel in the back. Now usually the way I like to play this is if I go up against a Ghost type in the lead, I'll try to catch a move on my Bibarel, and then Bibarel will draw out a fighter. But sometimes you are going to use Empoleon as your safe swap. Again, Empoleon will get shields from your opponent. If you swap in the Empoleon and then they bring in a Toxicroak and you go for that Drill Peck, you can guarantee that your opponent is going to shield. The only problem with safe swapping Empoleon is if it draws out a Gastrodon, that's not exactly what you want to see. Your opponent could still have a fighter in the back or even a Cresselia, so that's the only really tricky part about this team. I still really enjoy this team. Bibarel is so good against the Ghost types. It is going to be resisting Shadow Ball, it's going to be resisting Ice moves, it's going to be resisting Mystical Fire from Drifblim. It's a little bit squishy though, so watch out for that, but it is a nice team if you are bored and you want to try something a little bit different. Oh, also this team is entirely weak to electric types, so Magnezone and the Hisui and Electrode, you just gotta watch out for those. Still run that Mystical Fire on Drifblim. If you see the Magnezone or the Electrode, the Mystical Fire is still going to be super effective against those. Most likely you're not going to be able to land it, but Magnezone is manageable. Electrode is very tricky. This team also works very well if you swap one of your back Pokemon for Lucario, so Drifblim, Lucario, Empoleon, or Drifblim, Lucario, and Bibarel. Those are 2 very solid lineups as well, and they're very similar to the team that got me to Legend in Hisui Cup several seasons ago. So I know that this team is going to work very well for you guys. Especially if you swap out one of your back Pokemon for Lucario, then you'll have an answer for that Magnezone and that Electrode. Lucario is going to be able to deal with those very well. The next team I'm going to recommend is another one that really surprised me. It is Empoleon lead with Cresselia and Gallade, usually Gallade on the safe swap. Now if you see that Gastrodon or that fighter on the lead, you swap immediately into Gallade, and usually your opponent is going to bring in a ghost type. It might be a Driftblim or a Frostlass. And fun fact about Gallade that I actually learned playing my own Driftblim against Gallade is that if you land a Leaf Blade, you'll actually be able to beat the Driftblim, and you'll also be able to beat the Frostlass because the confusion damage is insane, especially if you're running Shadow Gallade. It has to be Shadow Gallade. Now, I don't always stick to my safe swap rules. Like the game that's running in the background, I swapped into Cresselia instead of swapping into Gallade. That's also because if your opponent chooses to stay in with Gastrodon against Gallade, it can reach body slams, and also the Mud Slap is going to be doing a lot of damage because Gallade is super squishy, especially since it's Shadow. So keep that in mind. Another way you can play this team is you can use Cresselia as your save swap and then just save both shields for Gallade and hope that whatever your opponent has in the back, the Gallade will be able to sweep. You can take both of your opponent's shields with the Empoleon and the Cresselia. And of course, you're going to have Empoleon on the lead, which is going to be taking care of your ghost types. Again, Empoleon is a very solid pick against Frostlass and Driftblim. I'm not sure I would recommend this team in particular for climbing, but if you're bored and you want to run something different, Gallade is so fun to play with. So give it a try. Wouldn't recommend it for climbing. It is still so solid. Like, look at this matchup here. My opponent has to shield a Leaf Blade because they know if they let it go, I'm going to win this matchup. Against a Driftblim, by the way, which is supposed to be resisting the Leaf Blades and the close combats. So it's very nice to know that you can take shields with Gallade even against something that is going to be resisting its charged moves. And finally, I have a bonus team for you guys. Again, not one that I would recommend for climbing, but if you're bored and you want to try something different, this is fun. It is Lucario Double Flyer, Lucario Driftblim, and Shadow Gliscor. The Shadow Gliscor is going to be running that Night Slash to do super effective damage to the ghost types and to Cresselia. On this team, I usually like to use Shadow Gliscor as my save swap. It's going to be good against all of Lucario's weaknesses, whether it's Gastrodon, if it's Toxicroak, even against the ghost types, it is going to be able to hit for super effective with that Night Slash. You just have to watch out for Frostlass, but if you draw out the Frostlass with the Gliscor, then your Driftblim is going to be free in the back to potentially sweep. But if I were to pick my top 3 teams from the ones I mentioned today for climbing, it would be these 3 that are on screen right now. And I would actually recommend switching between these and using a variety rather than sticking to, say, one team for 5 sets or one team for 3 sets. So I would say keep changing your team because you're going to start running into teams that are going to hard counter you. For example, let's say you keep running the Cresselia double steel backline. Eventually you're going to run into those Gastrodons and those Toxicroaks, so it's nice to go for a variety, keep switching up the team, and also if you keep switching up your team, you're not going to get bored. I was having so much fun because, as you saw in the videos, I was playing a different team in each game that I played. I was having so much fun with that. I know it might get a little bit tricky with trying to get used to the team, but it keeps the game fresh, it keeps things fun, and it keeps the algorithm working, that's for sure. But that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you use any of these teams and they work out for you, please let me know. And if you have any team suggestions for Hisui Cup, teams that are working for you guys and you want to share with everyone else, let me know in the comments. If you like my videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!